Hey guys, today I want to talk about some of the big news to come out of E3 2013, and I thought I would get, for me personally, my most negative one out of the way first. So, when, I was watching the Nintendo Direct. This was at, say like 12:30 at night, for me in Australia, but, which by far wasn't the worst of E3, they were going to, announce Retro's new game. I was really pumped. You see the aeroplane fall out of the sky, and you see Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong get out. I was very, very disappointed. To the point that actually, I thought that Diddy and Donkey, it was going to be a fake out. So I thought Diddy and Donkey would walk out and then bump into Samus, and then it would actually be Metroid. I thought they were just doing a nice little transition for that, but no, It is honestly hard to explain just how disappointed I was. And afterwards how angry I actually got. And that's something that's very unusual for me. I usually don't take this sort of thing that seriously. But I think after all the years of hyping up Retro's new project, just for it to be another Donkey Kong Country Returns game, yeah, I mean, I wasn't that in love with the first one, as people that follow my channel probably do know. Simply because it didn't have the atmosphere or the feel control-wise, or a lot of the different gameplay elements and characters from the original Donkey Kong Country. I mean, the animal buddies were just restricted to Rambi, you didn't have swimming. It's pretty light and cheery rather than the kind of more dark and atmospheric feel of the original Donkey Kong Country games, or Donkey Kong 64 for that matter. So I really wasn't that keen on getting another one. I'm sure it'll do well sales-wise, but I desperately wanted a new Metroid game. I think a lot of fans will probably agree with me in that we need a new Metroid game to get rid of the bad taste that Metroid Other M left in our mouths. And I think the only place that the best place for that to come from would be Retro. So, and considering that they'd done Donkey Kong Country, they'd done Mario Kart in the past few years, it kind of seemed like a fairly logical assumption that, especially considering they left Metroid Prime free on a cliffhanger sort of thing, that they might actually, with this one, continue Metroid. They'd come up with a incredibly impressive, looking Wii U game to try and attract some of the more graphical-minded buyers, and, it would be a new Metroid Prime game, but apparently not. But let's not keep focusing on the disappointment. Let's actually talk about the new Donkey Kong game, because it actually looks like they're getting a few things right that they got wrong, well, in my opinion anyway, with the first one. So, for one thing, they showed that swimming is back, and that is fantastic, because Donkey Kong Country is probably one of the only games I can think of, actually, that actually got underwater gameplay right. It was really a lot of fun. My only concern is that they've changed it quite a bit, because if you look at the trailer, you'll notice that Donkey and Diddy actually have air bars, so they can only stay underwater for a limited amount of time. So I'm assuming this counts out, fully underwater levels, which is a bit of a shame. Additionally, that probably actually rules out the return of the swordfish, which you could ride on guard. And the reason I say that is because, obviously, if they've got an air meter, having a one-use power-up that only works underwater, you could only have him for 10 or 20 seconds. It wouldn't really work out. The only thing I can think is that if you get on guard, then the air gauge goes bye-bye. But, yeah, I've got a bit of a bad feeling about that. But the other big thing that I've noticed, well, I heard about rather, is that they've got David Wise back, who was one of the old Rare team. And he composed all the music for Donkey Kong Countries 1, 2, and I believe 3. So that is fantastic that he's back. And hopefully it means that the soundtrack will be a bit more atmospheric and just kind of a bit more... I don't really know what the term to say, just kind of a bit better. I like the Donkey Kong Countries Return soundtrack, but it didn't really stay with me. The only thing that really did stay with me were the remixes of old songs. And that's mainly because those old songs were, already in my head. So I'm hoping for some more memorable tracks and some more atmospheric tracks as well. In terms of... I know a lot of people have been saying that they were disappointed that they didn't bring the Kremlings back this time. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with the Walrus Viking people things. It seems like an interesting idea, and I don't really mind them experimenting with different enemy types. At the very least, I much prefer them to the Tikis. It seems a bit more, I don't know, just a bit more equal footing to me. Because, you know, you've got the apes of the jungle versus, like, these similarly large, creatures from, I don't know where they're supposed to be from, but, there's a totally different climate in the world. So, I thought that was probably a good choice, and they did note that you actually are moving from one island to the next, so the only thing I can think for people that really want the Kremlings back is maybe we'll actually go to the Kremling Island from Donkey Kong Country 2. That seems entirely possible to me, and that way the Kremlings can just kind of make a little, just kind of like a more of a cameo appearance rather than actually being the big bads of the game. Which I kind of think they don't need to be anymore, because to me the final battle in Donkey Kong 64 kind of, that entire game really in terms of story really kind of took out the Kremlings. The stakes were pretty high as the K. Rool was going to destroy Donkey Kong Island, and then all the Kongs banded together and, completely and utterly defeated King K. Rool. So I kind of think like their story can be over, and that's fine if they want to keep experimenting with new enemies. So yeah, aside from that, I like what they're doing with the new, like the camera angles for the barrels. That's kind of neat. They were talking about it as one of their big features, but I don't really see how they can apply it too much in normal gameplay. Like I think it's probably going to be exclusive to the barrel sections more than anything. So, I mean, I'd love to see them do it in the actual main game, if they could find a way to do it and not throw off your sense of perspective, considering that you're still moving onto a 2D plane. But, it's a cool little addition, and it makes the game look a bit more cinematic and impressive. Aside from that, I actually kind of like that the director brought in, I think he was the director, he brought in the, what would you call it? The kind of like pulling mechanic from Super Mario Bros. 2, the Western version. So, he was saying that he originally worked on that game and he wanted to bring back that old concept of pulling objects up from the ground. And I haven't seen any fantastic applications of it in the footage so far. I mean, like, just Donkey Kong pulling on things and, like a beanstalk growing and stuff like that. Which is, But I'm hoping that there might be some cool puzzles with it and, like, some more in-depth stuff with that mechanic. Because, it's kind of nice to see stuff from Mario Bros. 2 resurface because, Doki Doki Panic, which is what that game was in Japan, it's a very unique game. It's got a lot of interesting ideas. The other new thing that they showed was that Donkey Kong can now actually pick up enemies and other objects, aside from barrels, and actually chuck them around. And I thought this was a pretty good addition. It makes a lot of sense, what with Donkey Kong being able to throw barrels around, why can't he throw anything else? And, I actually think, if I remember correctly, Chunky Kong had that ability in, Donkey Kong 64. So, it makes sense for it to return. The only other thing, and this was a very welcome bit of news to me, is that Dixie Kong is now entering the game. And this is very good news to me because she was always my favourite character to actually play as in Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3. Mainly because she could, hover, fly, sort of thing. She had the great rotating hair. I always love characters that can fly. Similarly, I actually do enjoy playing Princess Peach in Mario Bros. 2. But, yeah. But anyway, so it's great to see her back, and they also teased the announcement of a fourth character, who, most likely it'll probably be Kiddy, but I don't really want him because he's just a clone of Donkey Kong. He made sense kind of in Donkey Kong Country 3, but yeah, I think here when you've already got Donkey Kong, you'd have to really give Kiddy some new abilities. Aside from that, though, the only, they're kind of just the more out there picks that I can think of. Like, I would love to see Lanky or Chunky Kong. I don't really know if Chunky Kong could ride on Donkey Kong's back, but it would be great, in my opinion, to see those sort of characters return. The only other thing it is a possibility is that they'll actually create a new Kong, which they haven't done for... they haven't done since Donkey Kong 64, pretty much, off the top of my head. I know they did, like, these evil Kongs for Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, but in terms of actual proper playable characters, they haven't done a new Kong for a while, so it'd be interesting to see them take that on. But whether or not they'll do it, I don't know. The only other thing I want to address with the multiple characters thing is, will they finally give us the ability, if you're just playing single player, to actually switch between Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, and Dixie Kong? Because one of my biggest gripes as well, actually, with Donkey Kong Country Returns is that I couldn't switch to Diddy Kong. And Diddy Kong was always my preferred choice in Donkey Kong Country 1. Because he's kind of like, faster and more agile than Donkey Kong himself. So I would very much like to see a system, like the original Donkey Kong Country, where you can actually switch between party members, rather than just having to play as Donkey Kong all the time and just getting augmented with Diddy's abilities. Because I to be blunt, I don't have anyone to play Donkey Kong Country Returns with me, so I'm never going to get the chance to play as Diddy or Dixie if it's not the case. So it'd definitely be nice to see that as an option. But I think that pretty much covers everything on the new Donkey Kong game. As I say, I'm very disappointed in its announcement, but I'm sure it'll be a fun game, and it'll honestly, business-wise, it'll probably do better than a Metroid game would. Metroid has always been more of the, it's a crowd pleaser for the really hardcore guys, and it's, like usually a really big critical darling and that sort of thing. Whereas Donkey Kong's kind of, it'll probably get more of the, it could probably hit more of a general audience, because I'm sure the game will be hard as hell, just like Donkey Kong Country Returns, which obviously hits us more hardcore players. But with the the aesthetic, the character, and also the easily approachable gameplay, it'll obviously hit a more broad audience as well. So I can understand from a business perspective why you do that. But yeah, the only thing I do kind of hope they do, and I don't think this was the case on the E3 show floor, is that you can actually just play it with the Wii U gamepad or the Pro Controller, and just use buttons, because I think the Wii remote usage was kind of fun in some instances, like bashing down on the ground with the by flinging the Wii remote and nunchuck. I'd honestly prefer doing things like the roll just with with normal buttons. It just kind of feels a bit more natural, and it's less loose. It was kind of easy to roll a bit too much while you're shaking the Wii remote in Donkey Kong Country Returns. So hopefully they might allow us the option of doing normal traditional controls with that. But yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you later.